Hello, welcome. Dr. Sushma Singh this side. Today we start Unit 11 Marriage and its Changing Patterns. We take for granted that the institutions like family, marriage, and kinship are universal in India, and sociologists need to discuss the variations in these institutions based on region, religion, language, caste, class, and occupation. Owing to the whole range of variations, they find it difficult to make generalizations about such institutions of the Indian social structure. The basic question that will be raised in this unit is the validity of discussing only the common and different elements in the institution of marriage in India. Does this give us an understanding of the institution of marriage as it obtains today in our country? Dealing with the feature of near universality of the institution of marriage and discussing the issue of age at marriage in India may bring out the unity that exists across the regions relating to these two features of marriage. We may, on the other hand, discuss such features in the context of diversity as forms of marriage, patterns of selection of spouse, rights of marriage, material and non-material transactions involved in marriage, and the possibilities and mechanisms of divorce and widow remarriage in India. Most of these features relate to the primary marriage of a man or woman, secondary marriage of a widow or widower, or the separated or divorced woman. Man is accompanied by a nominal ceremony where there are generally no or only a few rights. Similarly, the pattern of selection of spouse may differ in a primary and a secondary marriage. Yet, having completed this process of looking at common and diverse features of the institution of marriage in India, we would still not have looked at the churning of ideas, values, practices, and conflicts that the very notion of the marriage brings to the mind in the context of its changing patterns. We find that today the very concept of marriage and its epistemology is a subject of much questioning. Feminist, Dalit scholars and leftists have in both theoretical and practical terms critiqued the prevalent notions about marriage. Some have accepted the even encompassing hold of the institution of marriage in everybody's personal life and attempting to negotiate it from its prevailing vantage point. In the feminist discourse, we would find that the marriage is a major site or an organizing platform through which the feminists have not only tried to understand oppression but also negotiated and established a more equal playing field. Along with the usual coverage that accrues to the topic of marriage generally, we should also pay attention to the emerging perceptions regarding the institution of marriage and its changing pattern. The examples of changing patterns and their theoretical significance that are cited here have been derived from the coverage of a symposium, Marriage, Family and Community, with contribution from Shah, Huntsman and Rinchin. It has to be acknowledged here that their articles have helped in building the case for rethinking our notions of marriage in India. In the course of discussion of each of the above mentioned aspects, we shall talk of the patterns of marriage with particular reference to the changes that have taken place in India since independence. For descriptions of various aspects of the theme, we also have referred to detailed accounts already provided in the course material of Sociology of IGNOU in BA program. Reading the referred portions will help us to obtain background information and explanation of basic concepts. We will discuss each aspect of marriage with suitable illustrations from some of the major communities like Hindus, the Muslims, and the Christians. Except for passing references, patterns of marriage that are found among the tribal population have not been described, mainly because there is a separate block in this course on tribal population. Now let us move to the topic: is the institution of marriage universal in India? Marriage is an important social institution, and therefore we need to assign a definition to it so that it has a universal reference and application. All the same, it is a relationship that has, in context of India, given rise to many controversies relating to the definition of marriage, though the debate took place with particular reference to the Nayars of Kerala. The concerns it took up had a general relevance. We may like to know a little about this debate over problems of defining marriage. According to Leach, considered marriage to be bundles of rights. The rights includes legitimatizing offsprings, socially approved access to the spouse, sexuality, labor, and property, establishment of affinal relationship between persons and between groups. It is possible to add, as per a particular ethnographic context, some other features of the above list of rights. But if we were to make a comparative study of the marriage in different societies, we would like to define the term in a more precise manner so that our cross-cultural comparison refers to the same kind of phenomena. It has been quite common to refer to the notes and queries to be find such definitions. Marriage is a union between a man and a woman such that children born to the woman are recognized legitimate offspring of the both partners. I suppose that you would gladly accept this definition of marriage in the context of society. Both Gov, who studied the Nayars community of Kerala, found that the union between Nayar girl and Namudridar Brahmana man could not be understood in terms of the above definition. Marriage is a relationship established between a woman and one or more other persons, which provides that a child born to the woman under the circumstances not prohibited by the rules of the relationship is accorded full birth status right common to normal members of his society or social stratum. This definition enlarges the scope of viewing marriage in a broader context than the definitions of the notes and queries. It would include the case of the newer woman marriage mentioned by Evas Pitrich. It would also include the case of levirate unions, which consider the child as a legitimate offspring of a man other than its genitor. As you may already know that levirate is a quite common practice found in some part of India. For example, Gazetteer of India has mentioned the prevalence of levirate alliance among the Ahir of Haryana, some Jat communities and Girijan and several castes in Uttar Pradesh and among the Kodagu of Mysore. Levirate refers to a marriage in which a man has the obligation to marry the widow of his brother. You can now make us the go definition is an improvement on the one given in the notes and queries. You may also be aware of several cases published in newspaper about the caste-based violence on young men and women opting to marry against the caste or subcaste norms. If a Jata boy wants to marry a Thakur girl, the two would have to face violence at the hands of their respective caste panchayats. This sort of periodic reporting in the media shows that marriage has become a contested site in our fast changing social world. Fernandez and the Gopal have documented cases of the forced marriages, excommunication, unlawful locking, outright murders, or last option suicides of those who have defied the existing norms of their caste and classes. The events mentioned above give rise to the question about the very nature of marriage and the variety of relationship it is to include in its scope. In India, as per Section 377, the law recognizes for the social and other purposes only blood and marriage relationship. In 1988, the first media reports of the Madhya Pradesh policemen deciding to marry each other brought out into the open some other examples of alternate relationships which had come up alongside marriage in different caste classes in both urban and rural India. Here is the reflection and action for you to ponder about yet other forms of marriage and decide if go definition or other definition that you know about include such cases. There is apparently one more problem with the above definition, which makes legitimatizing of children an essential component of marriage. Does it mean that all such marriages where no child is born are invalid? Is marriage not more than procreation? Can it not be considered as an existing fact if there are no children born? Mohanan has discussed Diomean marriage and distinguished the rights of a woman as a wife from the rights over the children she may bear. Times of India of 5th May 2005 published a news item on its first page with the title Man Tells HC. Wife cannot abort my child. He appealed to the High Court to protect his rights to fatherhood. This is an example of the kinds of right we need to ponder about. These media reports have been quoted here to indicate the symptoms of wide range changes occurring in a very notions of right involved in marriage. The above discussions shows that perhaps Leach is right in saying that all universal definition of marriage are vain, and so also is Needhams, who holds that marriage in cross-cultural context refers to the serial likeliness and does not reflect common structural features. As a matter of fact, Go to considers marriage as polytechnic, with an open-ended checklist. You may ask that if this is so, then why use the word marriage and why not refer to such relationship by some other terms? We will find answer of this question in our next lecture. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for listening.